She sat in that parking lot for 45 minutes, just sat there, engine off, hands in her lap, staring at the entrance of a building she couldn't make herself walk into. It was a courthouse, and inside those doors, a judge was waiting to finalize her divorce. 11 years, 2 kids, one house with a garden she had planted herself, tulip by tulip, spring after spring, because she believed in things that lasted. 11 years of a life she had built with her own 2 hands and her whole entire heart. And today, at 10:15 on a Wednesday morning, it was all going to be reduced to a signature on a piece of paper. Her name was Sarah. She was 41 years old. And sitting in that parking lot, she whispered something she hadn't said out loud in a very long time. She said, "God, if you're still there, I need a sign. I need to know that what's left of my life is still worth something. Please, I'm begging you, show me something." She didn't know that he was already moving. Sarah grew up in faith. The real kind. The kind that gets passed down in kitchens and car rides, not just Sunday mornings. Her grandmother was the kind of woman who prayed over everything. Grocery lists, thunderstorms, strangers on the street who looked like they were carrying something heavy. "God is in the details, baby," her grandmother used to say. "You just have to slow down enough to notice." Sarah had believed that once, deeply, completely. The way children believe in things before the world teaches them to be careful with hope. But the world has a way of being a very effective teacher. She had married David at 30. He was charming and driven, and he looked at her in the beginning like she was something remarkable. They bought a house in a quiet neighborhood with good schools and tall oak trees. She planted her garden. He built a career. They had Emma, and then 4 years later, Josh. And for a while, the life they had was genuinely good. But somewhere in the business of building everything, they forgot to tend to each other. The distance crept in slowly, the way cold comes into a house in winter, not all at once, but through the small cracks you don't notice until you're already shivering. Less conversation, less laughter, more separate rooms, more silence that had stopped being comfortable and started being a wall. She had prayed for that marriage for years. On her knees, genuinely, faithfully prayed. She had gone to counseling alone when he wouldn't go with her. She had read every book. She had tried every way she knew how to try. In the end, he left anyway. And when he did, he didn't just take himself. He took her certainty, her sense of safety, and somewhere in the rubble, quietly, without her even fully realizing it, he took her faith too. The year after he left was the hardest year of Sarah's life. She was a mother first. She made sure of that. Emma and Josh still had warm dinners and help with homework, and a mom who showed up. She held herself together in front of them with a determination that was almost frightening in its discipline. But at night, after they were asleep, she would sit at the kitchen table in the dark and feel the full, crushing weight of all of it. She stopped praying, not dramatically, not in anger, though the anger was there too. She just stopped. The way you stop calling someone when every call goes to voicemail. After a while, it doesn't feel like reaching out anymore. It just feels like talking to an empty room. She stopped going to church because she couldn't sit in a pew and sing about a faithful God without something inside her chest cracking open in a way she wasn't sure she could recover from in public. So she stayed home, drank her coffee, watched the rest of the world move through their Sunday mornings, and told herself she was fine. She was not fine. She was a woman who had once known exactly who she was and where she stood, and now she couldn't find her footing anywhere. That morning, the morning of the courthouse, she had woken up at 4 a.m. She'd lain in the dark of her bedroom, the one she used to share, and she'd thought about her grandmother, about those kitchen table prayers, about the way her grandmother used to say God is in the details, like it was the simplest, most obvious truth in the world. Did she really believe that? Sarah had wondered. Does he actually see me? In this house? In this bed? In this absolute wreck of a life I didn't ask for? She got up, made coffee, sat by the window and watched the sky go from black to gray to the pale, tentative pink of early morning. And something stirred in her. Not faith, exactly. Not yet. More like the memory of faith. Like finding an old photograph of someone you used to be. She drove to the courthouse alone. She had asked her sister to come, but then told her not to. She didn't want witnesses. She didn't want someone holding her hand while she signed her life in half. And that's how she ended up in that parking lot. 45 minutes, hands in her lap. One desperate whispered prayer. God, if you're still there, show me something. She finally opened the car door. And when she stepped out, there was a woman standing at the edge of the parking lot. Elderly, small. White hair tucked under a pale blue scarf. She was struggling, really struggling, with a paper bag of groceries that had split at the bottom, oranges rolling across the pavement in every direction. Sarah didn't think. She just moved. She crouched down and started gathering oranges, chasing the ones that had rolled toward the curb, and the old woman laughed, this warm, embarrassed, completely unself-conscious laugh, and said, "Oh goodness, there they go." They collected every last orange. Sarah helped her repack them into her tote bag and walked with her to her car, an old tan Buick with a cross hanging from the rearview mirror. The woman turned to her with eyes that were the particular bright blue of people who have lived long enough to stop pretending. She looked at Sarah for a moment, really looked at her, the way very few people take the time to do. And then she said something Sarah was not prepared for. She said, "You're going through something hard today, aren't you, sweetheart?" Not a question, a knowing. Sarah opened her mouth to say she was fine, to say the thing you say to strangers. But what came out instead was a single broken yes. The woman nodded slowly. Then she reached out and took Sarah's hand in both of hers, those small, warm, papery hands, and she said, "I don't know your story, but I know the God who does. And he sent me here this morning. I almost came yesterday, but something told me to wait until today. I didn't know why until just now." Sarah stood in a courthouse parking lot while a stranger held her hands and prayed over her, right there, out loud, quietly but completely, like it was the most natural thing in the world. She prayed for Sarah's peace, for her children, for the courage to walk through that door. And then she said, and these were the exact words Sarah would repeat for years afterward, the words she would write in her journal that night, the words that would become the pivot point of the rest of her life. "Lord, remind this daughter of yours that what is ending today is not her story. It is only a chapter, and you are already writing what comes next. Give her eyes to see it. Give her the faith to believe it before she can see it. And let her feel right now in this parking lot that she is not alone, that she has never been alone, that you have been in every detail of this day." Sarah was shaking, not from grief, from something else entirely. The old woman squeezed her hands and smiled. "Go on now, sweetheart. He's got you." And she got in her tan Buick and drove away. Sarah stood there for a long moment. The autumn air was cool against her wet cheeks. A single yellow leaf fell from one of the parking lot trees and drifted down and landed on the toe of her shoe. She looked down at it, and she heard, not audibly, not with her ears, but in that deeper place where the truest things land, she heard, "I'm here. I've always been here. I'm in every detail." Her grandmother's words, in her grandmother's voice, God in the details. She picked up that yellow leaf, put it in her coat pocket, and she walked through the courthouse doors. She signed the papers. She cried. It was hard, and it was real, and it was not wrapped in a bow, because life doesn't work that way, and God never promised it would. But something was different now. Something fundamental had shifted in the place where her faith used to live. Not restored all at once. Faith rarely comes back all at once after a long winter, but a crack of light, a door opening just enough to feel the warmth on the other side. She called her sister from the parking lot afterward. "Are you okay?" her sister asked immediately. Sarah thought about the old woman, about the oranges rolling across the pavement, about the yellow leaf in her pocket, about a prayer whispered in a car at 10 in the morning, answered within 60 seconds by the most unlikely instrument God could have possibly chosen. "Yeah," she said, and she meant it in a way she couldn't fully explain yet. "Yeah, I think I actually am. I want to speak to you right now. You, specifically. Maybe you haven't set foot in a church in years. Maybe you've prayed prayers that felt like they hit the ceiling and fell back down. Maybe you've been through something that took not just your circumstances, but your certainty. Your sense that God is present, that He is paying attention, that you matter to Him at all. Maybe you've even whispered a prayer like Sarah's. A desperate, I don't even know if you're there kind of prayer. Here is what I need you to know. He hears those the most clearly, not the polished ones, not the ones with the right language and the folded hands, the ones that come from the bottom, the ones that cost you something just to say out loud. He doesn't need your faith to be strong. He just needs it to be real. Even a crack, even a whisper, even God, if you're still there, that is enough to move heaven. He is in your details right now. The ones you think are too small for Him to bother with. The parking lots and the paper bags and the strangers with warm hands and good timing. He is already there. He has already sent someone, something, some small grace into the path of your ordinary day. Slow down enough to notice. Sarah went home and found her grandmother's old Bible in a box in the closet. The one with the cracked spine and the penciled notes in the margins, little arrows and underlines, and her grandmother's handwriting, loopy and certain, everywhere. She opened it to no page in particular. Her eyes landed on Jeremiah 29:11. "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." In the margin, in her grandmother's handwriting, were 4 words. "He means it, baby girl." Sarah pressed her hand flat against that page, and she prayed. A real prayer this time. Not desperate, or not only desperate. Something fuller. Something that included gratitude alongside the grief, trust alongside the fear. Something that said, "I don't understand all of this, but I believe you are in it." That was the day she started coming back to herself. Not overnight. Not without more hard days, more 3 in the morning silences, more moments of wondering. But she came back, steadily. The way spring comes, not with a single dramatic announcement, but with small things. A crocus, a warmer afternoon, a yellow leaf that somehow meant everything. 3 years later, Sarah stood in a church she had started attending again, the same one she had avoided for so long because it hurt too much. She was leading a small group for women going through divorce. And every single week she would open by saying the same thing. She would say, "I know some of you have stopped praying. I know some of you feel like He stopped listening. I know what it feels like to be in a parking lot, out of words, out of hope, out of reasons to believe anything good is still possible." She would pause, and then she would say, "Ask Him for a sign. Be specific. Be honest. Be desperate if you need to be. He is not offended by desperate. He built a whole universe in 6 days. He can handle your parking lot." And then she would smile. The kind of smile that only comes from someone who has been all the way to the bottom and found something solid there. He will show up, maybe not the way you expect. Maybe it'll be an old woman with a split grocery bag. Maybe it'll be a yellow leaf. Maybe it'll be 4 words in your grandmother's handwriting in the margin of an old Bible. But He will show up. He always does.